time for us to turn our attention to Wimbledon. I'm delighted to say Jenny Claffey is with us, a former Irish tennis professional. Jenny, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
This Wimbledon, we miss a few of the key players. We're missing Nadal and we're missing Serena in particular. It kind of feels like it's great to have it back. It's great to have the crowds there, but maybe we never knew how good we had it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, looking at Wimbledon this year, they had previously mentioned it was only going to be at 25% capacity. So it was fantastic to see the stadiums full. Disappointing with Williams, seeing that she dropped out in the second round with an injury. There's talk about her now, this being her last Wimbledon, so hopefully not. And with Nadal, you can see that the French Open, their last one, took its toll on his body. He fell at the semi-final stage to Djokovic, and he's now pulled out of Wimbledon and the Olympics. So it's a shame to see those big names, but also very exciting to see some of the up-and-coming players coming through.
Who's been exciting?
And in the women's game, I mean, the women's draw is it's wide open. Like, you can see that there's probably about 8 players now in the quarterfinal stage today. Each of them could win the match. You see Ash Barty of Australia. I put my money on her. She's a fantastic all-round player, and she's the #1 in the world at the moment, and I reckon this could be hers to win. We also have some up-and-coming players like Maria Sakkari of Greece. She's a very physical player. Sabalenka, who's from Belarus, she's #3 in the world. She's such a power hitter. She's playing today as well. She could threaten Barty, as I reckon. But we have about 10 women in the game. There's names there who you could really see coming through and winning the big majors in the coming years. And then obviously you look to the men's side, yeah, you see Djokovic, he's the kind of standout player there. But we have some next gen players as well. Stefanos Tsitsipas, he lost in the French Open final there. I mean, there's a few names out there like Rublev from Russia. He's also a very exciting player. The game is kind of evolving on both sides, so it's exciting to see.
What do you want to see happen over the next 5 years, say, Jenny? Like, do you want to see this chaos in the women's game continue, or do you want to see Osaka hopefully come back and then dominate, or maybe Goff go on to be a dominant player? What's actually best for the game over the next little while?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, for the game, it's great to see that there's such a wide variety of players now coming through. As I said, the game is evolving. The women's side used to be very predominantly power game. If you look at the likes of Serena Williams, she was just very dominant with big serve, big ground strokes. Now the players have much more variety in their game. So I think in the next few years, we're going to see that there'll be a few rivalries coming through. At the moment, there's just a few of them almost finding their form. They're still quite young, as you mentioned. Coco Gauff, only 17. We have Iga Świątek of Poland. She's also only 19. She's coming through. She's already won a Grand Slam. Osaka, of course, the big name there. She's won 4 Grand Slams already. She's doing amazing. I think that we're going to see, though, a few rivalries coming. Maybe not the likes of the Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova rivalry of a number of years ago. But I think for the spectators, obviously you want to see that there's the top 4, and they're the rivalry. Looking at the men's game, you know, the Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, Murray, they were the really dominant pair. I think the spectators, they like to see, you know, that there's going to be the hot favourites. But for the game, I think it's fantastic to see such variety at the moment.
How has the women's game changed since the advent of the absolute power that we've seen from Serena? Has there been an automatic copying? Is that what we're seeing, like a more athletic focused as opposed to the soft skills of the game? How has the game evolved, and where is it now?
Yeah, so I think like the way the games, if you looked at the men's game, the women's game, the men's game looked like they played with a lot more diversity. They would have used like different spins, top spin, slice, and they would have played with a lot heavier ball. So the ball would be bouncing up much more because they're using topspin. Whereas the women's game, they would have been deemed playing very flat balls, very hard. Now you see that they're using different paces, different spins. There's drop shots being played, there's slice, there's different tactical elements being brought in, and then also they're much more physical. Matches are lasting much longer now. As well as that, then there's the mental side of the game. I think the women's, you know, both sides obviously are working on the mental side, but that's been huge in the last few years. But in the women's game, is definitely the more on-court stuff. You're seeing the different paces and spins versus those big hitter players.
And is that a direct response to Serena's power?
Well, I think that's
a natural evolution.
Yeah, I think it's an evolution of the game, definitely. Like, there's more to tennis than just, those big power hitters. But there's still players like that who shape their game around Williams, like Sabalenka of Belarus. She's #3 in the world now. She is a cannon of a serve. She's very powerful. So she would almost look quite like Williams. She's just more consistent maybe now. And she also has better, let's say, volleys, so she can come forward. So there's more options available to the women on the court now, or they've just developed that. Rather than the hard-hitting players. I don't think that game is completely gone. I just think that there's much more variety in the game now.
Okay. Give me some hope. Who's going to beat Novak Djokovic?
I think that's a tough task, a tough call this year in Wimbledon. I mean, he's seriously motivated to try to get his 20th Grand Slam and level off with Nadal and Federer. If there's anyone I could call out, really, I'm thinking, and I'm like, I can't see anyone beating Djokovic. He's just the all-round player. Like, he's the man to beat, obviously. His game is just so solid. He's a bit like Marmite. I think you either love him or you hate him. But his game is just one to beat. I think a lot of the players are basing their game around his style. I can't count that man out.
No, that's the problem, isn't it? I'm definitely in the hate him camp. I'm not a fan of Marmite. Do we take for granted a little bit I mean, apart from the quality of tennis he plays, but the fact that he just kind of seems to be unemotional a lot of the time when it comes to getting sucked into the magnitude of the occasion. I guess I'm saying he's a cold-blooded killer, right, on the tennis court. And do we maybe take that aspect of his talent a little bit for granted?
Yeah, I think he is just the absolute essence of mental resilience. He is so mentally tough. If you look at some of his matches this year alone, look at the French Open final, he came back from 2-0 down against Tsitsipas, who is this up-and-coming star. And you could just see after that second set, he was 2-0 down in the French Open final, and the steely look in his eyes that he was there. He's like, you just knew you couldn't count this guy out. I think that is a huge part of his game, and what makes him so good is that he's so mentally tough. He attributes that to a tough upbringing in Serbia, and also he says he works on the mental side of the game almost as equally as his physical side of the game. But yeah, I think that we do look at him and see his tennis, but really it's a huge part to do with his mental strength as well.
Have we seen a significant evolution over the last little while from Novak Djokovic? Has there been that reaction to age that we've seen yet? Because that's almost the most terrifying thing about Novak Djokovic, is that there could yet be another chapter after this spell of dominance that he's enjoying.
Yeah, I think that he's going to dominate for the next few years, especially if you look at, as I mentioned, those top 4 players like Federer. This could be his last year on the tour with the injuries he's had. Nadal, again, also injured. And Murray, if you look, he's also injured. So I think Djokovic is going to stay at the top. He's #1 in the world now. He's won 7 of the last 12 Grand Slams. It's very hard to see him, unless an injury happens. I can't see him. He could nearly win 30 Grand Slams, I'd say, because you could just see his experience compared to the next generation players, those younger guys, the Zverevs, the Tsitsipas. He has that experience of winning, 19 Grand Slams. And he also has, as we mentioned, his mental toughness. And then he has this unbelievably versatile game where he's so hard to beat. So I really think that he's going to stay at the top for the next while.
Yeah, the 30, it kind of struck me there while you were talking that actually that's very realistic. It's not pie in the sky when you consider the speed at which he is accumulating titles at the moment, and the fact that that next generation, they really need to mature immediately if they're going to stop him.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard. If you just looked at that, as I said, the French Open final between Tsitsipas, he has come on into that final having won a number of events this year. His play on the court was phenomenal, but Djokovic just stood his ground. You could see he wasn't going to be beaten on the day, and those guys just almost crumbled. He played another match in the French Open, Djokovic, in previous round, where he was 2-0 down as well against another next-gen player, Musetti of Italy, and Djokovic just outplayed the guys. You could see he was able to turn defence into attack when he was under pressure. He was able to mix up his game, and he just has that level of experience above those next-gen guys that I just find it hard to see how he's going to be beaten.
All right, jennyclaffey.com is the website address for anybody who wants any coaching. I presume this is the busiest time of the year for you?
Yeah, summer is very good, very busy, especially now that Wimbledon is on. Everyone's out in their whites and out practicing on the streets.
Yeah, And that's as it should be. Jenny, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Great. Thanks very much, guys. Take care.